Okay, so welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, the hardest career series. Today's episode, we're going to be taking a prototype aircraft out for a spin. Now, the prototype aircraft is a supersonic airliner, or hopefully it will be. It's only a small business jet-sized aircraft right now, but hopefully this will be the first step to developing a much larger version, and obviously it's also an important step developing SSTs. Supersonic transports is also an important critical step on the way to single stage to orbit spaceplanes. Okay, so heading to the aircraft hangar first of all. It is ready to launch from the runway right here at KSC. But we shall head into the aircraft hangar. I'll show you the aircraft first of all. Okay, so this is the SST X2. I've tried a previous version, but unfortunately didn't really work out too well. So Jeb's going to be flying this by himself, because if something goes wrong, we're quite low to the ground, quite low in altitude. I want to be able to hop him out of the flight deck and use his parachute. Using that with more than, or trying to do that with more than one crew, is a little bit fiddly. So I don't want to take too many risks. So we've suddenly got this two basic jet engines still, except the B9 Aerospace TFE, which is for subsonic only. So using the Weasley, the J33, is an oblong tank from fire spitter and an adapter from oblong to round. Then we have the oblong nose intake. Now I'm hoping, because this is supposed to be unit scale 0.2, it takes in less air than a round version, so at higher altitudes, at higher speed, it shouldn't clog the engine up. That's the theory anyway. The round intakes are taking far too much in as far as air is concerned, and they are suffocating the engine. Okay, that is basically it. So 16 passengers and 2 crew, or 17 passengers and 1 crew. I've got 2 tanks in the nose section for trim. All of these flight surfaces also have fuel in. If it lets me bring them up. Not much, but they're just for trim. Just to affect the centre of mass while in flight. It is perfectly centred. Thrust and lift. Lift is a little bit lower than the centre of mass. Not fantastically sort of safe to do. In danger of the aircraft flipping over, trying to lift itself upside down, which is a bit strange. But if I put the engines any lower, centre of mass any lower, by using the engines to go a bit low, they're going to be too low to the ground anyway. I might lose the engines when we take off. And to that end, I've made the nose wheel a little bit lower than the rear bogies. So it should sit nose high at least a little bit, 1 or 2 degrees. Just help us get off the tarmac. Okay, so there's one of these already, as I mentioned outside. So Jeb's going to be flying this by himself. So we shall head out straight to the tarmac. Okay, so Jeb by himself. Now this aircraft, I've already explained in the aircraft hangar, it has trim tanks. Otherwise you mess around with the authority limiter and it gets a bit fiddly. So what we're going to do, what I've already done actually, the trim tanks here, procedural liquid tank, which is right at the nose. There's 2 of them right at the nose, embedded inside the aircraft. And that pushes the centre of mass towards the nose. And away from the tail, which is this part, you click on H for highlight. Tells you exactly where the parts are. Also the leading edge flaps. There and there. And the further forward pieces there and there. All they should be switched to in. So it pumps fuel into those areas. So we want to move the centre of mass from towards the tail, actually from the middle of the aircraft, actually, as we saw, forward slightly. Just so the nose wheel doesn't lift off too early. Okay, so here we go. Leave SES until we're actually rolling. Okay, full throttle. Hopefully it goes on a runway straight. Well, it is pulling over that way, as you can see from the prograde marker. We've got a slight imbalancing thrust. %, 37%, 37.5. No, we haven't. So what's going on? Okay, seems to be fine. Seems to be a bit of a lag between one engine and the other. Seems as though the port side engine is throttling up faster than the starboard. Seems fine now though. It's got quite a high stall speed. Because it's leaning back slightly, it should actually lift itself practically off the tarmac all by itself. Yeah, a little bit nose light or tail heavy still. Smooth fuel back into the tail. And I think out of the nose. There we go. See the pitch control. Yeah, it's trying to keep the nose down. So it looks like we are not nose heavy. We're nose light. Put the fuel out of the tail. Okay, as I said, it's still a prototype. This is a bit of a an issue. In fact, it's the biggest issue, which is balance. Seems to be. Obviously, it's not a combat aircraft, so we're not expecting it to do high G turns or anything like that. Okay, so we're at 265 meters per second, Mach 0.8, approaching 4 kilometers. Let's close that for a minute. Target speed there. Turn the SES off now. Whoa. Yeah. Whoa, that's imbalance. That is massively imbalanced. Come on, Jeb, recover it. Dynamic stall. Yeah, it wasn't going fast enough for that speed. It's that speed. We're not going fast enough to maintain altitude. Okay, so quite clearly we're not balanced yet. This is basically what I've been struggling with. Can't see anything else. We're actually balanced. We're actually push out. It was perfectly balanced in the aircraft hangar, so I'm going to put them all on balance mode. See what happens then. Now we're still pitching down, so we're still nose light. Let's bring these two in. Pump that out, and that should shift the centre of balance towards the nose. But obviously 92%, it still represents a lot more fuel than any of these tanks, even 100%, because it's a much larger area. It's a larger surface area for the tank, so there's obviously more in the tank. So basically what we're going to do is just burn off some fuel. Okay, so burnt off a little bit more fuel. So I don't think we're going to actually get a perfectly balanced aircraft until we get rid of all the fuel in the tail. We're coming up to 22 minutes into the flight. What I've done, I've used the, instead of using vertical speed or altitude hold, I'm using pitch control. Finally, very, very finely controlling the pitch of the elevons. So that may benefit is moving the wings further back, increasing the size of the forward, these two tanks just here that we've got embedded towards the nose, as I've already mentioned. Just see them just there, so flicker on and off. And also, performance increased by doubling up the engines, decreasing the size of these by a third, which we can't actually do because there's no tweak skill on these parts. But we can double up on the engines and move the flight controls a little bit further back. to make space for the new engine. But we are maintaining Mach 1. We are about 6 kilometers in altitude, so that is not too bad. For first attempt at an SST, a supersonic transport, a passenger airliner, that's not too bad. So any of the gap contracts that we have, we can take up to 16 passengers and 2 crew. We can get to any of the destinations a lot faster now. Something that's also done to the gap contracts, reduced the reward, the cash reward, down to just 1/10 of what it was. So these passenger contracts aren't anything like as lucrative as there was. It's just getting a ridiculous amount of money for each passenger, which is a bit silly really. Okay, I think that's about it. Okay, so finally been able to engage the autopilot with vertical speed hold. And also vertical altitude hold as well. So now the 2 tanks in the just behind the nose section are now empty. I've got 30%, well 28 points. Let's change that. Got 30%. There we go. Pitch is still compensating slightly. Not as much as it was, and it's not chasing the needle anymore. It's not too bad. So maintaining Mach 1. We still have 3,000. Oh, this actually lies. Just over 3,500 units of fuel as far as seconds are concerned, but that's not very accurate. So 6,000 seconds will be 100 minutes. It'll take us about 40 minutes to get back to KSC. So I'm thinking empty some of the fuel out. Which one will have enough empty tanks like these two. We don't need the fuel, so empty these tanks out, lock them out, I think just remove the tanks completely. Keep these 2 tanks in the forward section and increase them by, I'll say, another 50% in their capacity. That way we've got enough tanks empty, tank space empty, to be able to move stuff around from your first takeoff. That's the problem, just too full of fuel. We're not even halfway down, and we are coming up to the first hour. We'll be maintaining, I would say, for at least half that Mach 1 at more than 5 kilometers in altitude. Okay, I think that's about it. We'll still tweak it before we try any passenger flights though. Okay, so that is the first flight of our latest experimental aircraft, the passenger aircraft, which is capable of supersonic speed, otherwise known as a supersonic transport. It's also a very, very important first step on the way to SST or spaceplanes as well. Alright, but that is the end of this episode. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to click like, it is appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy the content, that is also appreciated. We also have Discord, Facebook and Twitter. You can find a link to all three of those platforms on the banner and front page of the channel. Obviously, as always, if you want to leave a comment or ask a question, you're more than welcome to do so. Okay, so that is the end of this episode. Once again, thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the very next one. In the meantime, as always, take care and bye-bye.